Hello ladies and gentlemen, Code Night is back with a brand new Code Night Direct. I'm really excited for this one because it's got some news I've been willing to share with you for a long time. But we'll save the best till last. For now, let's get into the filler stuff which I have planned to share with you. And good news, this entire direct will be mostly Yu-Gi-Oh related, which is what you guys really love so much. First, I have one non-related Yu-Gi-Oh subject I would like to share with you. I am pleased to say I will be releasing the first 3 pilot episodes of Pokemon Philosopher. The entire series will be separated into 5 chapters, the first 3 episodes containing the first chapter. That chapter will introduce you to this brand new world, its story and characters, and the rest of the chapters will be released weekly another time. Why? Well, you'll have to watch until the end of the first one in order to find out. I really hope that you enjoy this series. I put in a lot of time and effort into it over the past few months. The aim with Pokemon Philosopher is not only to make a sequel to Science and Magic, but also fix a few of the problems the original series had, such as updating the art style, or speeding up the pacing of episodes so they're not a millennium long. Seriously, episode 3 of Science and Magic is one of my longest videos yet. Anyway, these episodes will only be around the 20-minute marker at most. I've been waiting a long time to share this series with you, and I really do hope you enjoy it. Pokemon Philosopher will be released on July 30th, and will be released weekly from then. I hope you enjoy this new experience in the wonderful world of Pokemon. Right, now let's get to the section of the video you're probably all wanting to hear from, the Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. Well, the first thing I would like to announce is something that me and the rest of the YDU crew have been working on. The FST. No, that's MST. There you go, the FST, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Fan Series Tournament. This series, me and the rest of the crew have duels pitting fan-made Yu-Gi-Oh! Characters against each other. It doesn't matter what series they're from, we'll put them in a dueling arena and put their decks to the test, while spitting hot fire and having fun while doing it. So far, 5 episodes have been uploaded, and counting, including this one which you're seeing right now, which is Valtor vs Mephiles. So if you love fan-made Yu-Gi-Oh! Series and you want to see 2 different characters from a different series fight one another, then this is your opportunity. The Fan Series Tournament is available on Drakescale's channel, or as he's now known as, Spooky Electronics. So, make sure to check it out. Speaking of, fan-made Yu-Gi-Oh! Series, my own fan-made series, Unleashed, is going through a few technical difficulties. I'm unable to film in person due to some faults with my filming space, not to mention the green screen I possess showing its age. But once I get back into filming, I do plan on making the Behind the Duels miniseries starring Ace. But that might take a while. But I do plan to get it done, and hopefully I'll have it ready by the next Code Night Direct. So stay tuned. Oh, is it time? Oh, I bet it is. I cannot wait to show this with you guys. This is it, the one thing I've been waiting this whole update to share with you lot. Take it away, lads! That's right, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Dimensions universe is now joinable. you too can have your own fan-made Yu-Gi-Oh series take place in this joint universe, alongside me, Dookie Darkwolf, and Spooky Electronics. However, don't get too excited. After all, we have a few rules and regulations you are going to have to follow if you want to be a part of the gang, and even more so if you want to stay a part of the gang. And helping me to explain these rules are both Dookie and Spooks himself. We'll cover all of these rules as well as certain tips which you might need to follow. Alright lads, let's take it away.
Rule number 1, obviously, is to not invite yourself in. We appreciate, of course, that you want to be part of the YDU, but we'd rather not have you just invite yourself in. What I mean by that is not to make a show and then out of the blue say, oh yeah, this is part of the YDU, without any of us knowing about it.
Rule number 2, be kind to the community and the rest of your colleagues in the YDU. This should go without saying, but any bullying, dishonesty, or flat-out immature behavior will not be tolerated. Try to keep things as friendly as possible. Go too far and you can kiss your butt goodbye.
Whatever happens in chats, stays in chats. Don't share any sneak previews until they show up. So that means that you don't go around showing your projects to random people until like official announcements or until the product gets officially published. And unless you have the approval of others to like share your work.
This also applies to you knowing information about other shows. For example, with Dookie and I, we knew about Odd Eyes Dragon of the GRO way before the finale was even close to being made. However, Dookie and I did not go around showing everyone and their mother Odd Eyes Dragon of the GRO. As you should you see any previews of any show in the YDU.
That's right. Any spoilers on cards, story elements, or the like will not be tolerated and will result in your immediate expulsion.
Especially if you share spoilers from other shows without other creators' permissions.
So yeah, anything you hear in the chat, keep quiet. You don't want to pull a Hugo now, do ya?
Rule number 4. Respect other people's and other shows' lore and story. What this basically means is try your absolute best to stay consistent with the other shows. This, for example, can mean staying consistent within the timeline. Like how Era of Dueling first season takes place during the first and second season of Yu-Gi-Oh! Unleashed. And thus, all the elements of seasons 1 and 2 between Yu-Gi-Oh! Unleashed is relevant to Era of Dueling. However, you will not see season 1 of Era of Dueling ever bring up the Baryon clan.
Or how Yu-Gi-Oh! The Dark Revival first season will be set in season 2 of Unleashed. However, it will be its own separate thing since it's in another dimension. But stuff from season 2 of Unleashed will be mentioned or referenced to establish where the season is in the timeline.
And before you place your series in the timeline, make sure to ask us about the timeline itself in order to prevent things like contradictions and overlap. This, of course, is so we can keep the timeline of your series and all of our series consistent. But remember, this is still your series at the end of the day, so still try to keep it its own thing as well as being connected to all these other series. Being a part of a joint universe should be a side thing, and if you focus too much on the idea of being a part of a giant universe where you can cross over with other characters, then you'll have a similar problem to Marvel. Rule number 5, if you want to join, just simply ask one of the members. This process will begin with an interview first between you and the current members of the YDU. This of course involves you telling us about the series you have planned, us asking you a couple of questions, and after that, you're gonna have to show us what you can do. Basically, you'll have to give us an example of your series. It could either be a pilot, or the intro to your series.
The best way you can do that is by uploading it to Google Drive and leaving us the link to said Google Drive so we can review it.
To quote Rick and Morty, you have to
show me what you got.
After all this is said and done, we'll decide amongst ourselves if you're in or not. So good luck.
If you want to include a character from a different show in yours, ask permission to keep the owner of the character involved in the writing process so they can make sure that the character is accurate to the representation. So that means that if you wanted to, for example, have Hugo Celadon or Dahlia Goodwin in an episode of your series to tag along, you will have to ask permission from S-Code and Drake Scales. And also you will have to write the script with them so that you may get the character properly written.
If you're going to do this, make sure to think about how this would fit in lore-wise.
And timeline-wise.
As an example, in Season 1 of Era of Dueling, this is before Blur even makes a physical appearance within the show. Meaning that I was pretty free to do what I wanted with him with his story there, but I still had to stay consistent with his personality and what he'd act like.
Not to mention the deck/cards he used at the time.
Yes, of course. Rule number 7. Obviously, you are allowed to use custom cards. If not, S-Code and I would be in very big trouble. But you don't have to worry about the art. Draw it, edit it together, whatever you want. Just don't use stolen art from DeviantArt or other websites within the art space. Art from other card games, however, are acceptable, like how the custom archetypes in Era of Dueling use artwork from Cardfight Vanguard.
Some other card games I would recommend are Shadowverses, Chaotic, and even this Japanese card game called, Duel Monsters. Huh.
Time to cease and desist.
And the only two exceptions to this are the Pokemon and the Digimon card game.
Another way you can make your own art is by using character creators.
Number 8, your series should fit in timeline-wise. Make sure to discuss with us where and when your series will take place in the YDU. Does your show take place before, during, or after a certain series? And same applies with seasons too. Just make sure to discuss it with us and let us know. And if your series takes place during the events of another series, make sure to ask permission for that. Again, this is so the timeline keeps consistent. This also applies to certain events that happen in the YDU, as well as character stuff. If you want to add something to a story, event, or character, make sure to ask the owner about the retcon or the add-on. For instance, me giving permission for Drake Scales to use Blur in Season 1 of Era of Dueling, and adding the additional backstory with the characters that he interacts with in that series, such as Pink and Blake. So yeah, make sure to ask the owner if they're alright with the retcon and or add-on.
Number 9. If you want to make your own dimension with your own summoning mechanic, feel free, as long as we talk about it, of course. So that means that if you want to come up with your own summoning mechanic in your own dimension, that means that you have to first discuss it with us, mostly S-Code, so we know if the summoning mechanic is eligible for the series, how it works, and how it's going to be implemented into your series.
If James Sullivan for some reason wanted to be a part of YDU and he wanted to include staircase summoning along with the staircase dimension, he'd have to talk to us about it.
If you're going to do this, think about how these monsters would be summoned, how they would stand out from regular monsters, and all of the above. For instance, evolution monsters have a skill, not a monster effect.
Make sure that it has a balance, like evolution monsters. Evolution monsters are pretty good, but they require normal monsters and a specific type of spell card to be used.
Balance pretty much applies to any custom card you make, but more on that in a bit.
Number 10. The final rule. Should you do something incredibly heinous,
Be it within the community or outside of it,
then you're...
Now to explain a bit of the lore of the YDU. It involves a very similar lore to the anime, as should have been obvious if you watched Unleashed, to include the rarity of certain monsters and the effects. For example, Red Eye Darkness Metal Dragon would be its anime effect. The same applies to pretty much every single card.
So if you're going to use a Yu-Gi-Oh card in your series, make sure to look at its anime effect first.
In terms of rarity, special cards like the God cards, be it Egyptian, Nordic, or Wicked, the Sacred Beasts, Yubel, the Signer Dragons, the Numbers, the Dimension Dragons, and the protagonist Ace monsters are off limits. I don't even think Jaden would appreciate you trying to take Yubel from him. If they are used, they need to be fake copies and not the actual thing or something that everyone agrees with. So for example, Mephiles can use fake Dimension Dragons because he could just poof them into thin air. However, unless you have a good explanation for it, you can't.
But even then, I would recommend sticking to your own cards, because not only will it give your series its own identity, like with what Revelations does, but it also helps make these cards feel just as special as they were in the anime.
The YDU takes place with a Master Rule 3, so this is before links and before the additional rules behind pendulum summoning. If you want your show to use links, or the new pendulum rules, it needs to take place within the future, or within the link dimension.
If you couldn't tell by that, that means that the events of the YDU, or at least all 3 current series, take place after the events of Arc 5 and before the events of Reigns. So keep that in mind when you're making your series. Lastly, even though we do encourage you to make custom cards to help make your series stand out, make sure that balancing is your first priority. After all, the last thing you want is for your main villain to be a Valtor.
To give some examples of some rules behind custom cards, if you make custom support, make sure that it fits within the playstyle and game plan of an archetype. If you're making your own custom archetype, make sure that along with being strong, of course, as you want them to be strong, that they do also have a weakness and something that they suck at. And additionally, make the text readable. This is very crucial. You do not want us to have to break out a magnifying glass when we read your effect.
Correct. Making your card too broken and giving it too many special abilities not only makes it harder for you to remember what the card does, but it also makes it harder for you to write an out for it, unless you make another custom card specifically to counter it. But even so, not every card you make has to be a main villain boss monster.
Take, for example, Prez Komori for a long while having a hard time figuring out how to take care of the Wicked Precursor, because of how many effects the Wicked Precursor had.
The YDU may specialize in custom cards, but we try to make them as realistic as possible. We try to find that balance where a card isn't too overpowered or too pathetically weak. So make sure to treat your custom cards with the same privilege. And that's pretty much everything. If you don't want to rewatch this update in order to get all that, I will upload the rules and regulations in their own video shortly. But for now, that's pretty much everything you need to know if you want to join the YDU. If you have any further questions, let me, Dookie, or Spooks know in the comments below. I hope you follow these rules, and I hope to get the opportunity to show off your series in the next S-Code Knight Direct. I think that's pretty much everything for now. So, I'm S-Code Knight, and I'll see you guys next time.